So this is Conant Show 34, and true to form.
Sound is good.
And we have sound, and we've got a camera, and we've got another slideshow tonight. And as always, I'd like to thank Paula Gloria Barton for teching and making my shows happen in such a good way. And so I'm following up on the last. We have a theme of stuff in the sky in the last couple of shows, and this show advances more towards the discussion of the atmosphere itself and clouds. And in the previous show, I sort of ended with that topic kind of creeping into this show, which is, clouds are the visible parts of living creatures that make up the atmosphere or participate in the atmosphere, much like whales or fish in the ocean. There's a whole nother order of life in the sky that these three particular scientists worked very, very hard identifying, even though they were conscripted by the Air Force in the 1940s and 50s. And that would be Wilhelm Reich, Nikola Tesla, and Trevor Constable. And from each of their different disciplines, they researched and found out that the sky is a composite being. It's a living thing. And the objective of the Air Force in all of this is to understand anything in the atmosphere, and whatever they don't understand, they regard as the enemy, and whatever they can't control, they regard as the enemy. So that's the Air Force kind of foci on the atmosphere and what comprises the atmosphere and how it operates and what lives in it. And so a lot of my discussion that will sort of come forth out of this is relative to that research of those people. It's not my research. It's stuff that I stumbled into through the years, and because it's a topic of interest of mine. And as I started understanding geoengineering and the impact of high technology on our civilization, on our species, on all species, I took to taking photographs of the sky. Primarily, I was chasing aircraft that were putting stripes of white stuff in the atmosphere. All right, chemtrails by some estimations, and contrails by others, and there's an agenda to confuse the two so that the public mind, our general population, stays divided in their consciousness about what is actually going on. And you can apply that idea to absolutely every realm of our socioeconomic and political constructions. So as Paul and I sort of, talked about these aspects of the atmosphere, the living sky, we kind of cooked up an idea. Okay, well, let's see what I got in my photography that might be relative to the idea of demonstrating the sky as a living thing. And so that's where we'll start. Is we're going to start with Wilhelm Reich and his work on orgone research, which is life force energy, and various cultures through the millennia have identified it by different names. Some people call it prana, some people call it chi or ki, and Wilhelm Reich decided to call it orgone as a life energy. So here it is. This is a ramped up tabletop, it's about 3 feet tall, orgone generator that it's not my invention, but I did construct this one, and I did add a few things to it, like the coils that you can see. And if you look at the bottom here, I'll give a real brief description of it. This area here is a polymer resin matrix that is encasing metal filings, metal windings, aluminum, iron, and copper. And then there's all these little gemstones and a lot of crystals that I went up to the Herkimer County, and I went crystal mining, and I got some Herkimer crystals in there, quartz crystals, rose quartz, stuff that I've bought. And then embedded in this matrix, which is a 2-gallon pail that I used as a form, so it's like about the size of a 2-gallon bucket, and you have 6, you can only see 4, or appears to be 3, but there's 6 in a hexagon pattern, half-inch pipes, copper pipes. Again, they're about approximately 3 feet high. And inside that, between the copper pipes that are embedded here in the base, with crystals in the bottom of each one. They're like pin crystals. They're very, very thin and they're long. So they go in the bottom of each of those pipes, and they organize the energy that comes in from space and from the air and from microwave towers and all these kind of things. Doesn't matter if it's a high energy like a gamma ray or microwaves, radio waves. Well, gamma rays or X-rays. They're all a form of light, and various radiations of light will give you various frequencies, and that is the beginning of this conversation, really, because life energy, orgone energy, ki, prana, is a frequency, and it is an energy. It is a waveform, and it is like a natural electricity or a very subtle electricity. The objective of this device, or at least the theory of it, is that the metal filings in the core, in the matrix, using the copper tubes like antenna, attract and absorbed, gamma rays, X-rays, cosmic rays, and as well as anything toxic, any kind of toxic microwave, whatever it is. It's just a high speed energy, okay, is attracted by the metal filings in the polymer matrix. Then the polymer is like fiberglass resin that people use to make repair canoes and that kind of thing. It's a petroleum product, and it hardens when you pour it into a bucket and you add a little catalyst, this chemical. It's a catalyst, and it makes it hard very quickly. And that is how we cast this thing. The quartz crystals and gemstones and such that are inside that area, the matrix, organize the energy that's been coming in. The polymer resins slow it down. So these energies get attracted by the metals and then trapped by the polymer resin, and then organized to the frequency of life by the quartz crystals. And that arrangement of the specific pin crystals with coils around them and the bottom of each of these 6 pipes then collect that organized energy, orgonized energy, and send it out the inside of the pipes. And the idea of this is that then off the top of the tubes here, you have a floodgate open of life force energy. It's just pumping out into the atmosphere. And the reason that these devices are constructed by people is to help the atmosphere dissolve or digest, is how I like to look at it, the toxic metals and polymer resins that are projected into the atmosphere by various devices and planes, and that was covered in the last show. I have actually one photo in here loaded up of one of those devices, and a couple of them actually, as well as planes. All right, so that's a big one. It's a similar device. That one's 6 feet tall, and they interact with clouds. This is the first device I actually built, and coming off the top of these pipes during a particularly horrible chemtrail day was an awful lot of clear, and that's the only way I can describe it. It's just a clear beam. It looked like a Hollywood special effect, cutting through the smoggy air, the chemtrail air. And this would be, that event was March 7th and 9, 2005 is when I built my first device. Now, I am not taking credit for inventing it or anything special like that. This is the work of Don and Carol Croft, and I found their instructions on a website run by Ken Adachi out of California called educate-yourself.org. And it's a very informative website about all kinds of things. So this is a big, this is not a tabletop, this is a lawn ornament size device there, and it did some really incredible effects to some chemtrail clouds that I observed breaking down as a result of it. All right, now I want to show you our neighborhood a little bit. This could be the Adirondacks, come to think of it, but I'm pretty certain that's right around our neighborhood here. And I think I took this off the tower, the fire tower at Overlook. I'm pretty certain. But the idea, the reason I'm showing this is, we're looking at a living thing. I love this scale because the trees almost look like fur. There's a quality, or moss. There's this warmth to it and undulation to it. But if you look at the cloud deck, these are what I call very two-dimensional clouds. There's just not a whole. They're just not very interesting, and the general haze that you see in the background normally would be water vapor. And in the event you're near a city and it's a bad air day, it might include various other compounds, such as car exhaust and factory exhaust, which is mostly steam, which is mostly water. And I want to throw that statistic back out at y'all again. It's interesting to know that for every gallon of hydrocarbon fuel, be it gasoline, diesel fuel, paraffin, doesn't matter, you're going to get, there's different formula, there's different scientists out there formulating this. So I've heard anywhere from 60% water to 90% water. I lean heavily towards the 90% water because of the conservation of mass and energy theories or equations. So if you have a hydrocarbon liquid and you burn it, all you're doing is you're knocking off the carbon and attaching hydrogen to the oxygen, and you're making water. And the ash, what little bit of ash does come out, is the carbon. So, and that's in like a pure state. No liquid fuel, no liquid gasoline. They put detergents in it. There's minerals in it from where it was mined, sulfur being one of them. So you get a lot of lead was a problem in fuels, but they even used to add the stuff. Right up until the 1970s. There are success stories. It's not all bad out there, folks. There are success stories, and one of them, and it's almost like a success, by accident, is the Clean Air Act. And I talked to an environmental protection officer in Albany one day about just this kind of thing. I said, well, what's the state of the atmosphere? You're in the business. You're one of their guys. Tell me what's going on. And he said, well, I would say this was around 2000. I spoke to the fella, and he said since the 1970s that the air in the United States and the world, but specifically the urban centers of the United States, has gotten very much better, a lot better. And I was really pleased to hear that, and that's why I get almost amused when I look at the chemtrail planes just scuzzing up the sky, and think that, well, let's see how many EPA rules and laws and are being violated here secretly in plain sight without our consent or understanding. All right, moving right along. So this, I know this neighborhood. That's Cooper Lake, and this hillock right here is where I have a cabin. That's where I stay up there, and that's Mount Tobias. And again, we're looking at these two-dimensional looking clouds. They're very flat looking. They're not real healthy looking, and an awful lot of haze. And when I see these kind of clouds, this is what's coming down from the clouds as the, let's call them cloud people or cloud creatures, eat the chemtrails. And so you get a dusty particulate that comes down. And if you're really diligent and you have a nice backyard and you're protected from road grit and dirt and stuff, put a piece of glass out and just leave it out for a month, and you'll have a residue that you can scrape up, and that can be measured, and we can find out what's going on. It's very hard to get water sampling done in any of the labs anymore, because they are told not to tell you exactly what metals and polymers are in the water. They don't want you to know. The most they'll tell you is things like copper and iron and sulfur, all the things that you would expect. But they're not talking about the elevated levels of aluminum and cadmium and barium. So if you can find a lab that'll actually tell you what those are, they're even required now. Many of these labs will ask you, well, what's this water from, and what's it for, and why do you want to know? So those are some of the things that are going on when it comes to trying to find out and verify the statements I'm making. It's becoming harder and harder to do that. And here's a kind of a much nicer day. And again, you can see the cloud deck is still looking kind of flat, but there's a little bit of life looking to it. But what's really impressive is the blue sky poking through on the top, and that is the color. The blue that you see in our sky is the color of orgone energy, and it is also a healthy color. Now, there was a crisis in the 1990s, and great, fanfare about the ozone depletion of the upper atmosphere, the ozone layer. And it has since healed since the 1990s, 90% ahead of schedule. And well, what does that mean? It means that the depletion in the upper atmosphere of ozone has reversed itself. It's been adding to it, the ozone hole. Now this is another interesting thing, is you will get different, depending on the political agenda of this website or scientist or whatever that you're dealing with, they will tell you different things. So it's very, very difficult, again, whether you're going to the Met Office, which is the meteorological society in Britain, or our they call NOAA and NASA and all these other monitoring agencies. They really rarely give us a straight answer what's going on with our atmosphere. So moving on to the next one. Here's a nice New York City street for you. It's the RFK Bridge, I believe, formerly the Triborough Bridge. And the reason I snapped these pictures while I was tooling along is I noticed this mackerel pattern in the sky. You can see where I have the cursor. It looks very spotty, mottled. And then you see this fuzziness, and then you see straight lines, and then you see, more kind of fuzzy straight action, a lot of straight, these are all chemtrails that have been, spreading out. And there's the haze, lower to the horizon. As we're going across the bridge, you can see that yellowish looking haze where I'm pointing the cursor. But if you observe the blue of the sky and the clarity of the air in the immediate area, this is not that long ago. I took this photo 2 years ago, I think, last year, 2 years. And, you know, the nice definition of these buildings, and hopefully, let's see if I got another one here coming up. That's a little better. You can see more of these buildings. You really can see the buildings with, there in the background. That's a nice definition. And here you can see the evolution of the clouds a little more. But what's going on here is some of these are cirrus clouds, and these cirrus clouds have been chemtrailed by the various aircraft. And this is just the general haze and that lower to the horizon. But there is also more of a chemtrailing event going on. That's looking north. Okay, the sun is to the southwest behind me, and I'm going north across the Triborough Bridge. And these wispy clouds that have shape to them are expressing the living part. And they literally dissolve the chemicals that are lacing the upper atmosphere. It's not even that high. They sometimes come down as low as 10,000 feet with their schmutz. Now, here's a fine smog-laden view of George Washington Bridge. I think that's the George Washington Bridge. And yeah, there's the Empire State Building. And the reason I'm showing this one is that you get a sense of this fuzzy two-dimensional cloud deck, and so much chemtrailing has been going on that it just drops down as, it would look like smog from the 1960s. But we don't have smog from the 1960s because of the Clean Air Act. New York City can frequently be found to be very, very clear, awesomely clear and beautiful. And the summers in the past 10 years have been wonderful in New York City. And New York City is a destination again. But when you want a good smoggy day, they have to put the planes out and manufacture this smog. That's not smog, it's chemtrail dust. All right, now this is in our own Woodstock here. And this is a classic example of a living cloud. This wispy one here, it's kind of almost glowing in the sunlight, the way the sun is refracting off it. Now they just call, cirrus clouds, oh, well, they're just, random ice crystals. They're not, they're just ice crystals. That's all the meteorologists will say. But they're more than just ice crystals, because I've many, many times observed behaviors with cirrus clouds, where they can move independently of the air mass around them. But anyway, anytime there's a nice cirrus cloud, you will see the chemtrails. You'll see that. And in fact, a lot of this cirrus cloud has already been chemtrailed, and it will, like little tendrils, you can see them, they're like fingers, work their way up into the chemicals and digest it so we don't have to. They're intelligent, they're living creatures. And this is important for you all to wrap your mind around, because there's no plane. The plane hasn't been here in a long time, and this chemtrail starts and turns off. It even kind of sputters. It goes poop, poop, All right, contrails don't do that. All right, and this is a very recent picture too. This is 2 summers ago, or last summer. And above the power lines here, you see this ribbing. See that subtle ribbing? All right, that is from radio waves agitating the upper atmosphere. And then we have what looks like a nice kind of sort of natural poofy cloud, a little bit of a cumulus cloud. And then you have these lovely cirrus clouds that are very busy turning into things like this, these fuzzy guys, all right? So this is a battle in action, folks. What you're watching is the natural sky breaking down the artificial clouds. There's no natural clouds anymore. And if there are, it's because they've already been broken down and they haven't been chemtrailed again. All right? Now, clouds have a sense of humor. They also have a sense of intelligence and compassion. Now, what's interesting about this photograph is it looks like a little Scottish Terrier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my lady friend Dina Crisell, who helped me build the first orgone generators, this day, her little Scotty Terrier died from, we suspect, chemtrail poisoning to the lungs. This dog had lung cancer. And the cloud people fashioned this fabulous shape in the western sky after the dog died, and Dina got my attention. I was working on something or in the yard or something, and I got my camera and snapped this picture. I mean, I always get a big kick out of it, because to me, it's not random. How could that be random? The clouds are aware of us. All right? And now I have another context of that. So this was almost a stationary sighting, and this is from my friend Charlie Knox, and it's from about 3 years ago now. And he said it was moving very slowly with this strange illuminated tail, whatever this was. And so it's not like a comet. It wasn't moving fast. It was surreal. Again, if you look at this sky, as I'm moving the cursor around, all of that sky action there is very two-dimensional. It's very fuzzy, and there's very little definition of the cirrus clouds. They've been chemtrailed to oblivion. But, kind of looks nice anyway. It's kind of a nice sweeping look. And there's a close-up. So this is really very curious, because you have these two kind of bright spots, and there's very definitely a shape here, and then there's all this stuff coming off, like a I don't know, multiple nozzles or something off the back end of it. And he said he couldn't figure this object out at all, and it just slowly moved along in this particular sunlight. The sun, I think, had already set or was setting, and it was illuminating it from, I'm not sure because I didn't take the picture, but that's the gist that I get. So again, a very curious interaction between a light object, a craft perhaps, maybe not, and a chemtrail sky. Now,
You want to introduce it?
yeah, you're going to like this one, folks. Now, contrails have straight lines, and they end after about 2 miles behind the craft. And down below on the ground, if you put your hand out, sort of like make a ruler like that, you will see a good way to measure the sky. So a normal contrail will end after the airplane very rapidly. This image that you're looking at, if you want to go to the queue, is clearly not a normal contrail. Whatever it is not a contrail. And I observed the craft spew the stuff out, and then I was so excited at the bizarreness of the chemtrails here. It's kind of beautiful in a way, but as you can see the particulates distributing out and away from the actual trail. And look, and it stops and starts. It almost looks like a cord, It's very, very weird. And the general sky around it, I'm moving the cursor around. That's kind of annoying. I'll let it disappear. There you go. No, the cursor, so people can just appreciate it. So you can see a little bit of the lens flaring, right? That kind of big, huge diamond shape, or maybe that's one of the sky critters. But I'm not going to go there. But you can see, we will. So what we can see is we can clearly see the fuzziness, because the sky has been already inoculated with tons and tons of this, these materials. So let's go on to the next one, see what we got. All right. Now, they call this a chemtrail plane with, well, what's interesting about this is the black lines. There's been a lot of controversy on the internet about these black lines in front of that project in front of a chemtrailing plane. And one argument is, well, the sun is behind it and it's making a shadow. But frequently, like as in this one, I know that the sun was not really exactly behind it. And that it seemed as though the craft was following a predetermined path. And that is what is really fascinating about these kinds of things. Now you said something quite interesting about, you know, the plane or the craft and the contrails not syncing up. I really liked the way you phrased that in our previous show, Paula. And in this particular chemtrail plane, now that I'm looking at it with fresh eyes, it's always good to come back to it and look at it again, all right? And now I'm also seeing it on different monitors, so I'm picking up more nuances. To me, it almost looks like wherever those airplane engines are on what appears to be a plane in this area there, this is tough to control that, right? Doesn't seem to be syncing up with the trails behind it. It seems like the plane is too small. Yeah. The object of an airplane seems to be much too small for the placement of engines on it. Now, that's the first time I've ever noticed that. So like I said, it's always very good to revisit these one's photographic evidence, because you will see these different nuances. All right, now going on to the next one. Here we have an example of what is a real healthy looking cumulus cloud. And you can see the blue sky, and this is just a ground picture. I'm not up in an airplane or anything. And you can see and appreciate the fluffiness of it and the shapes that we're all used to seeing of a nice cumulus cloud when we're kids, that kind of thing. And that's why I include that. That and the blue sky is, if you look at the color of that blue, it's more of a, that's mine. Yeah.
Oh, you want her to take it back?
Nah, we got it. Is a different kind of blue than you'll see in more recent. Now, this photograph is very early on in my Oregon generator experiment. And so you can see that the blue is almost sort of muted. Let's say it that. It's kind of a muted color. Now, I'm including these pictures because this is very soon after. This is the summer after that first Oregon generator. And you're looking at a chemtrail cloud, well-developed cloud that was probably months old, breaking down. And since it's sunset, I thought, wow, it's such a bizarre looking cloud and it's such a bizarre on fire sky. It's beautiful, but at the same time, it's kind of ominous to me because it's not really a very natural sky that we're looking at there. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, I love those clouds.
Now, here you have a mix and match. You've got kind of the gray metallicized clouds, and the cirrus clouds are inside the cumulus clouds. They are making the cumulus clouds puff up while breaking down the chemtrail materials that have been inoculated into the sky. I mean, the ones that are interesting that way is like this. You have these kind of shadows here in normal rain clouds are caused by the water vapor being so well formed that you get a shadow under the cloud. But in this instance, you're getting shadowing above the cloud because it's not a shadow. That's the metallicized. This is a metallicized cloud that hasn't been broken down yet. This is one that's in the process of breaking down, and then you've got these kind of nice ones in the way background where they've been sort of, you know, they've eaten up the gunk, so they've become more fluffy, if that's for a better, you know, lack of a better word. Again, the airplane is barely visible,
Yeah.
barely visible, and you have the trail.
Is that even an airplane?
You know, it looks like it has wings. It looks like tubes with wings, but it's very, very subtle. You can't see it. So it could be the angle of the light, or it could be, you know, some method of cloaking. I'm not going to rule out just the angle of light, because I have observed, depending where the sun is and where you are, where the plane is, you will have a variety of effects. But what's interesting to note here is, again, the trail is stopping and starting. You see that? The condensation trails do not do that. There is no good argument. There's a lot of make-believe, but no, that doesn't happen. Now, that's very early on. That's very early on also, and that's Mudge Pond in Sharon, Connecticut. And again, if you look at the upper section, Mudge, Old Farmer Mudge, he dammed up the brook.
Oh.
And he made a pond. It's actually a very ancient pond. At one time, it was a natural lake that had eutrophied. But you can see the blue at the top here. It just doesn't quite have the panache that our skies do today. This photograph is now probably 12 or 15 years old,
Wow. Is that pre-Orville?
or 12 years old. No, this is like the first year of it. So this would be 2005, 2006. Okay. Again, you have that same, these sort of hazy two-dimensional things, and then these more healthier looking clouds rolling up behind it, because they're actually processing and nucleating the toxic materials that they're putting in these clouds are becoming the nuclei for the rain. That's another part of that. And here you go. Isn't that nice? Look at that guy. And let's see if this works. All right, I can't do it that way. All right, what I was going to do is zoom in. So there is another way to zoom in.
Oh, really?
No. All right. That's all right. So this little guy here, you've seen him before in other photo and blow-ups, but you know, he got my attention, and no, that's not an airplane. That's one of those guys up there that sprays the smuts. All right, now I like this one. This is part of the series of pictures of where the clouds were on fire looking, and very early on, 2005, 2000. You can see the blue in the background is still very muted, but it's still, you know, I love those the palette of colors there.
Yeah.
And here you have, you know, over Connecticut, some really nice interplay between party clouds, yeah. And yeah, I like to show that the difference there between, you know, flat clouds and nice cumulus clouds. And that's a nice cumulus cloud there billowing up. And that was, now imagine yourself at the base of that cloud pointing your camera straight up. That's what I was doing. And it was incredibly clear and incredibly awesome sky to capture. But the tone, again, you know, this is very early on. This is like 2006, 2005. The sky has a very specific kind of color to it that is indicative of lack of ozone and lack of oxygen and lack of life. All right?
How fast did that happen? What would have been like 5 years before that, say 2000?
In 2000, you know, the sky was fairly, in my recollection, it was worse in the 90s, I would say. I would say there was so little ozone that in the 90s, in early 2000s, the sky in a cloudless sky would almost be in the ultraviolet range, very far away from the turquoisey color that we have today, and more towards the cadmium color of blue. Yeah. Now we're back to this fabulous. I took a bunch of shots of this chemtrail because of the real curious behavior of what did he do? Did he twist his plane around? I mean, what's going on here? And it stops and starts, and it wasn't a Skyrider, folks, and you can just sort of see the chemistry of the.
It's a DNA chemtrail.
Yeah, right. Really, really kind of a strange looking thing. And I had filters on my lens there, and it gave me these lens flares, and I think that's kind of cool. Because of the way the sun's right on the edge of the thing there. And there's our little dog. There's our little dog. See, that's the context picture I wanted you to see. And you talk about seeing faces in clouds. Well, you do. When the clouds are listening to your thoughts, the cloud nations, you breathe them in. So all the clouds out there, they are a part of us, and we are a part of them. You see, because we are all parts of a greater whole. The greater whole is the earth itself, and all that's on it and around it, because the oceans and the atmosphere are really a part of the same thing that envelop the stony core. So there's our.
Like an honoring of the little dog's death.
Yes, so they're sensitive. They have sense of humor, but they're also sensitive. And Dina was just bawling her eyes out when she saw that. Now this is an important photograph because you're getting what we call luminescence in the cloud. Luminescence in the cloud is well, not luminescence, it's iridescence. So when you see an iridescent insect, the colors are very vibrant and they're very shiny and they're very translucent and this kind of thing. So when you have that kind of phenomena going on with a cloud, it's supposed to be very rare, and B, it has everything to do with the polarization of the ice crystals and water droplets, how they're oriented to the sun, the angle that they're oriented to the sun and the earth. And this will give you a refractivity. And that refraction gives you a sense of almost like a rainbow. Okay? So if we're looking at that, you should be able to see on your TVs there a range of colors. And our different screens here are showing a variety of colors. Now I took that in
2005?
Yeah, that was in central Manhattan in 2005, summer 2005. And what do I want to say about that? It was really, really, really obvious that this over, to the east of Central Park, it was just iridescent and luminous, and it had the rainbow colors in it, almost like an oil slick on water. Because it had primary colors in it, like the rainbow, but it also had secondary and tertiary colors, where you get things like, purples and browns and greens and,
Like oil in a puddle.
yes, like oil in a puddle. So this is after the orgone generators were constructed, and the energy field was now extended all the way down into Manhattan, 85 miles away from the unit. And I was seeing these reactions in the sky. And this is a living cloud. Yeah, all right. It is a living cloud. It is a cirrus cloud, but it's a cirrus cloud that's fighting for its breath because it has had so many contaminants shot into it.
If you put a Polaroid filter on that, what would happen? If you put a
Well, there was a filter on it. That's why we got as much color as we do. When I took that photograph, there was I had my filters on, and you know I would take several photographs and I would change the filters because I didn't know what each one did. It was a camera was a gift, and you know I'm not a photographer, but I learned in a hurry, without spending too much money on mistakes either.
Because I remember when you put a Polaroid filter on my eyes and I looked at a cloud, you know, I could see what you meant, the oil in the puddle.
Right. Yeah, anybody, you can do that. Any cloud, any day, go out there with your sunglasses, and if the sun is reasonably behind the cloud and you can see an edge around the cloud, look at that edge, and 99% of the time you're going to see that iridescence that really, you know, shouldn't ought to be there. Just telling you. All right, now this is an old photo from Connecticut, very early on. It's that springtime, after I made my first device, and they chemtrailed us so heavy, I just had to go up and take a picture. Now what you're looking at is Mudge Pond, which is from this end to that end is 2 miles. So this is about 2 miles. And it is from this end to this end is about a half mile. And from here to where we're standing, you know, taking this picture is about 2 miles, maybe. All right. So we're looking at, you know, 4 miles. At the very farthest reaches here, these hillocks back here are probably 4 to 5, maybe 6 miles away. This one is probably 4.5 miles away. Right. You can't see any definition here. This is a spring, early summer day, and the chemtrailing was going on all night and all morning, and so by this time of day in the afternoon or late morning, it's just a schmutzy sky. It's just this. Everybody was getting sick that year. They called it non-specific respiratory illness, and it was just. I just had to take this picture because there was just so much haze that really had no excuse for being there other than what they had been doing as naughty pilots, chemtrail pilots. And here we have yet another fine example of a sky battle. Now, I've watched these things many, many times. There's a chemtrail, all right, this guy coming through here, that's not a natural cloud. You'd have to be out of your mind to think it was. This is another chemtrail here, and then all of this action in between, that's the living sky wrapping around and eating it. These little tendrils, they come up and they grab the chemtrail as it's spreading out, and they literally dissolve the chemtrail. This is very early on. Again, if you notice, that kind of flatness to the blue in the sky in the background. Very early on, 2005, 2006, in Connecticut, and I just had to take this picture that day because it was just outrageous what they were doing. So just look at that for a moment.
When did you make your device again?
2005 March.
March of 2005.
Yes.
By the way, you're 49 minutes into it.
Okay.
You can go until 8, so this will be a longer than 1 hour DVD.
Now, let's go on to the next one. Let's see what else I got here. Now, I include this one. It's an early shot, and the sky has still got that funk to it, that kind of grayness. And, but you got to appreciate that technique where I'm tracking the plane so that my camera is following the plane at the speed that it's going. And I'm using this to show you and demonstrate to you that I've got a steady hand. So when people say some of my pictures are, oh, that's a blurfo, or your hand shook. And I said, well, just so you know, I can get really, really clean, tight pictures of these aircraft up there. Now, again, this is from that series, I show this one because you can really see the lack of definition in these clouds here. They're just fuzz. They're just fuzziness. And then these ones are denser. They're also, could be the angle that the sun's hitting it, but I don't think so. I think you can really see, and you can really catch the colorings. The sheen. See that sheen? It's like there's grease in the sky. I think you can appreciate that. But again, there's a haunting beauty to it. That's why I took the picture. And here we are back in New York City again. You can see some of the edges of the building there. All right, down there is the buildings. And I show this because the iridescence is really pronounced here. You can't see it so good on these screens. Maybe the ones at home you can, but they're really, and on my monitor here I can see the really iridescent nature of it. But what you're looking at is those beautiful cirrus clouds. Here they are right over central Manhattan, near the park, Central Park. And if you look at this right angle, there is a dimensionality to these chemtrails, and you can really see the difference between something that's fluid and organic, and then the artificiality of something that has been put up mechanically as opposed to organically. And this begins the next part of our discussion. We have programs going on. One of them is called HARP, and I've mentioned this before, High Altitude Auroral Research Project. And it sounds very benign and kind of cool, good way to spend money. And the more nefarious or sinister side to that program is it's weaponized. It's beyond research. It's operational. And they being the deep state, secret government, Illuminati, whomever is in charge of funding this operation up there, follow the money if you want to find out who's doing it, right? Can direct energy into the atmosphere in bursts, or they can sustain it. And we're talking billions of watts. This is from the 6th of March, 2017, this image here. This is a very recent image. Now I want you to pay attention to a couple of things. They have been really chemtrailing again, folks. And if you look on the west here, this is what they call the marine layer. Those are very, very low clouds. And they're literally, it's the steam coming off the ocean. All right? You have a low pressure system here, and you can see the spiral. Okay? This low pressure system here has been a low pressure system circulating the planet for probably thousands of years. And the meteorologist that turned me on to that concept is a guy by the name of Elliot Abrams. And I found him over at AccuWeather.com out of Penn State University. And he's a real veteran, and he knows his stuff. And he just went off one day talking about how each of these low pressure systems that become hurricanes or become storms or superstorms or even little storms circulate around the planet. And he says, we should just dispense with coming up with new names for hurricanes every year because it's the same low pressure system that we've been tracking, for a dozen years. So let's just call it, Dan, or something. And, oh, well, here comes Dan again, coming around for, a visit in the spring or whenever. And that really tipped me off about something, because I noticed that in these circulations here, they're always attacking them to bollocks up the storm itself. There was an effort in my mind. I was observing a lot of these satellite images in 2005, 2006, and subsequently, because I was interested in the changing atmosphere, and we'll get to that when I get into my older slides. But what's interesting about this one is you have rain, as depicted by these kinds of greens here, right, and yellows, and this might be snow out in the west here because it's fuzzier. It could be so. That's definitely snow in the mountains there. And that's probably a little bit of snow there at high altitude. But then you have another signature over here, right over Georgia. And Georgia's been suffering repeated droughts over the past 25 years. Some of these droughts last 3 and 5 years at a time. They don't talk about it as much as they were talking about California. But over here in Georgia, now, let's see if this stacks up properly here. Whoops. Nope, it doesn't. Okay. So I'm going to scroll ahead to my other stash of.
Here, I'll put it on you until
All
you
right.
find out what you want.
Let's see what we got here. There we go. There we go. Let me go back.
You want it?
And okay. So, yeah, we can go back. All right. Now, this one is
Oh, that shows the
May-
thermometer at the bottom.
May 15. Yeah, that's a well, it's color coding for a lot of things. Some of it is temperature of the clouds, and some of it is what's in the clouds. This is what they call a combination. This is radar reflectivity, right, for the rain droplets. And then the white stuff is the clouds, and that's satellite image. So they have a radar compounded with satellite image. And that's 11:45 a.m., 1st of May, 2015. And this is 11:35 a.m., 1st of May, 2015. So this is just shortly after, I think 10 minutes later. There's nothing there at all. Now we're looking Texas now. We've gone away from Georgia. We might come back to Georgia. We'll see how these are stacked up because I didn't have time to really organize them. All right, so there's no rain in Texas. They've got some low-level cloud here action, but there's nothing to indicate rain here. All right, folks? And then, what's that? All right, this is the same day, 1st of May. It's 11:15 a.m. And there's this green blob, this signature of energy. This is the radar reflected signal of rain, but there's no rain here because there is no cloud there. Okay? Let's do that again. There's a cloud. I mean, there's no signature. All right, and the difference in time I can't really see on my screen here because it's just a little slightly out of. It's within minutes of each other, because if you look at this cloud or this little signature here, you'll see that they change a little bit. All right, that's in the other direction. All right. There it is. See how the clouds hardly even change? I was looking at the screen, and I had the presence of mind to capture that event. Now, what is that? That's probably HARP. making a directed energy assault on the ionosphere. I'm going to go back a couple here. And there's the one over Georgia. Now you see the similarity to that. There it isn't. There it is. All right. Now, I don't mean to bother you about that, everybody, but it's important that you understand that there's a lot of energy being directed right over our heads. And there it is again. So we can do a little back and forth here. So you can see by the shapes of the other clouds around it how close in time and context it is. Now, why would they be doing this? Well, whoever they are doing this apparently to push weather around, to tell the clouds what to do. All right, now there's that picture where several slides back, I wish they were in order, this area here had one of those blobs. Oh, look at that. Comes back into Texas. All right, this is 1:15, the 1st of May again. So this is a context view. There it isn't. There it is. There it isn't. There it is.
That's when they hit the beam weapon?
That's when they, yes. Now look at the shape of it. You see the signature here? How it has, it's sort of like almost like a butterfly sort of, right? Now if we go back enough, you see that butterfly shape? So that's a signature of whatever it is, and however they're beaming that into the space above, I don't know, it looks like Austin or something, Central Texas. With whose permission? I want to know. All right. Now this is a fine example of a lenticular cloud, and this was in our show last week. But I want to go over this again for a couple of reasons, because I want you to appreciate the color of the sky now. So this is about 4 years ago, and this cloud here stays put, while this little one here and other ones go zipping by. Now, you know, I snapped these within maybe 5 minutes. So you can see them coming and moving in front and then moving away. Whoops, there I am. Hello. All right, so I'm going to go back, and we'll go backwards in the sequence so you all can really get an appreciation of a lenticular cloud exerting behavior, because it's just staying put. It's not going anywhere. Whoops, let me go back one. Go back another. What's behind that? That's me. All right, there I am. Okay, here we go. And you all see that? And I'm going to go back the other way. Now, I'm showing this picture because it's demonstrating behavior, as I said in the earlier show. And, you know, if it has behavior, then it's being moved. Something is moving it. All right? So, you know, I have to think a thought to articulate my hand. All right? I have to send a signal from my brain to my hand and make it move. Similarly, a fish has to have that agreement with the ocean or the lake that it's in or the river, and it tells its body parts what to do in order to stay upright and hunt and do all the things that a fish does. Similarly, we're watching a cloud hold its position while other clouds are zipping right along, and they really were. I mean, that's what made me grab my camera once again. You know, when you start really observing your surroundings around you, and you truly take an interest in it, you start to see things that we take for granted every day. And when you see what they call a lenticular cloud, they're very specific clouds. They look like flying saucers in a way. There's some great internet photographs. You can look them up online if you want, and you can see some fabulous lenticular clouds. This one was just a little puffy one, you know, and it had the classic shape, which is sort of flat on bottom and sort of dome on top. Okay? And they can be really, really smooth. I mean, some of these lenticular clouds look like lenses. That's why they're called lenticular. And let me see. Let's just do that again. That's such a great thing to see that cloud. Just there it is, and then these other clouds move in right in front of it, while that one just stays put. There you go. I mean, just incredible. So what I'm trying to offer up to you is the idea that these elementals, this other kind of creature, right, another order of life, are intelligent. Okay? And they hear you talk. They hear this program. They hear it because what we hear, any sound that's emanated, whether it's a train in Saugerties or, you know, your cat yelling to get in or whatever it is, has to go through the medium of air, and the medium of air is the flesh and blood of these creatures. All right? That's what I'm trying to get in your head. So when you breathe the air in, your life force energy is coming from this incredibly beautiful blue sky. If you notice now, the sky is really very different than in those older photographs. It's become much more vibrant and blue. And look at the screen up above. That's more like the original photograph.
Yay, spectrum.
You see how that glow is going on there? Our sky is very glowy now, is how I like to put it. I wonder if I got what else I got on here.
What's that off to the side here?
Icicles from my window.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yes, that is a winter scene. And I just wonder if, what's it? No. All right, there's Grandma Twy. I talk about her often. That's my little Anona there. And let's just show that for a second, because this is another order of life. Seneca.
Oh, Seneca.
Yeah. And so I saw this beautiful bloom of mushrooms. I don't know what they are. They got quite large. And but the color was just so stunning, this orange-yellow color. And but when you look at the shapes of them, you know, it reminds me of the clouds a little bit, especially that lenticular one. You know, there is a kind of a flow that's almost liquid-like to the line of these creatures, the fungi. Now, what's interesting about fungi is that they are both animal and plant. So they're somewhere between animal and plant, or they are composite creatures of animal and plant. You know, I've never really been able to pin down a biologist or a botanist to straighten that idea out for me. But yeah, these creatures also display intelligence. Now I can hear some of you out there already going, intelligence? What are you talking about? It's a fungus. It's a mushroom. Well, mushrooms have a very interesting life cycle. This is the fruiting body stage. And prior to the fruiting body stage, this is when they grow spores. This is when they sort of replicate. I don't know if you could call it mating. I don't know if they do that like many plants do, or animals do, but they make spores which are so tiny in some instances you could almost think of them as like viruses. But they make these little millions and millions of little spores in the gills underneath. And but prior to this sort of fruiting body stage, they are what they call slime mold. And slime molds, every different slime mold has a different pattern, a different color, and makes a different fruiting body. It makes a different mushroom. Well, slime molds know where they're going and what they're doing. And I have tracked at least 5 or 6 different species of slime mold tracked through my garden. And some of them eat the plant that they go over, and some of them will just leave an innocuous mucus trail. But these slime molds, these colonies of cells, they are on the march, and they are very organized, and they know what they're doing. And no, that's a fruiting body. That's again, I don't know what kind of fungus that is, but yeah. And here's a winter scene for you out my window. There's a little crystal thing there to sort of. It's just thought I'd show you that. That's what it's like up there at that kind of a day. Again, the clouds are, that's a winter sky, and you can bet that sky is full of chemtrails. Oh, this is some artwork, more artwork. All right, now there's a concept for you. I call that the crystal fish. And the crystal fish because those are the crystals. There's a story behind this. I was babysitting some kids out in Buffalo, New York, and put them down for a nap. And so I lay down on the couch to nap myself, and I see, I got into a strange state. I was doing, lots of ceremony with Grandma Twy there at the Seneca, so I was very cheed up, you could say. And this creature stood in the doorway between the living room and the kitchen, and it held a trident, and it was a skeleton of a fish, and it was propped up on its tail, and it had like a little fleshy mouth, like what they call suckers or carp. And it gave me this whole lesson that the earth is a crystal fish, and that the skeleton of the earth are all the crystals, and that mining crystals is a bad idea. Because each crystal, this is what it told me now, I'm relating to this strange story. It said to me that each crystal family represents the DNA structure of a species, of a plant, of an animal, and so on. So all the different crystals, the many, thousands and thousands of, hundreds of thousands of crystals out there, each one corresponds electromagnetically, and harmonically to a life form and the DNA patterning of that life form, and quartz being human. And so this crystal fish told me this story that it was out in space, and it heard the call of our star, which is also a living creature. And it was lonely, and it wanted company. So the crystal fish swam up to our star and grabbed its tail with its mouth and went into an orbit, and over millions of years accreted matter to become the Earth. That's what it told me. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty far out idea,
Try that on for size.
Yeah. So I woke up out of that reverie. Well, like I said, I wasn't really quite asleep. Really in a deep contemplative state, wondering just exactly what happened here. As I just had a 6-foot-tall crystal fish give me a history lesson of of our Earth being a living creature that's actually a kind of a space fish that.
How did you take that picture?
I made that picture using Photoshop. It's my own illustration. Yeah. So,
Memorializing the event.
all right, try to remember. Oh, there I am as a young man. And then we're back to the top of the queue here, I think. No, we're not. So, that's again that little kind of pale blue in the background, and those are those chemtrail clouds literally breaking down very early on. That's got to be April or so of 2005. That's another oil painting. That's some beadwork.
Oh, that's beadwork.
And there we're at the top. Yeah, you see that?
Can you explain about the bead treaties?
Yeah, well, beaded belts are very important in the history of the Haudenosaunee, of the knowledge keepers, and they call that fire keeper or knowledge keeper, and elders.
A special tribe?
No, that's the native word for the Five Nation Confederacy. And I may not be 100% accurate with this stuff, but the idea is that when an individual made an agreement and committed to recording that agreement in a beaded belt, that individual was then committed to making everything. You didn't go to a store and buy beads. You made your beads, and you made the beads out of a certain shell. I think it might be called wampum, which is a white and blue or purple and white shell, and it could be quahogs, might be what we call them. I'm not sure, but anyway, so you would have to cut blanks out of the shell, and for the beads, and then so you would have like bigger than a toothpick, like these rounds, these sections of shell that you cut. They would be rectangular from the cut, but you would smooth them to make them tubular in a sense. And then you would have to then cut the length of the bead that you want off of that, and then using a stone drill that has been worked to a fine point and then hafted like an arrow onto a shaft, you anchor that little blank bead, and you have to then drill a hole through it. So if you need to make 1,000 beads, you can start calculating now the production that goes into making your own beads with indigenous technology, with Stone Age tools. And
Is the idea like a meditation while you're doing it?
well, no, it's a commitment because you're recording an event, you're recording an agreement between tribes, or in this case, like the two-row wampum was between the Queen of England, excuse me,
That outdoes any corporate seal.
and the Haudenosaunee is one of the oldest treaties on North America that in our modern age. So each bead, each placement, each color, all combines to make meaning from the beginning of the belt to the end of the belt. And if that's a belt that's 45 inches or 35 inches long and 4 inches wide, that's a lot of beads, and every bead means something specific. And there are people, not a lot of them left, who know how to read those belts, Lloyd's being one of them. And the translation of those belts are the written ink on paper contract, the treaty between
It's like mini stonework.
well, yes.
You're
Fortunately,
you're documenting and memorializing an event.
or a gift, or an oath, or a treaty. It can be anything. But in this case, we're talking treaty belts. And so the care and time and energy to make to string these beads, to make the beads themselves, that was a huge commitment, an undertaking. And so therefore, it meant it carried a lot of weight, in meaning and in importance. You don't make a beaded belt for somebody for a frivolous or a silly reason. I mean, we can today make things very quickly because we have industrial tools and industrial supplies, but not in the context of something that's a spiritual undertaking where you have to go out, get the shells, shape the shells into blanks, cut the blanks into more blanks, and then drill holes to make the bead, and then string the bead, and then string the bead accurately to the contract that you're depicting. Huge commitment of time and energy. You know, and you would think that with that kind of sincerity, the conduct of our nations would be more honorable, you would think. And not that I'm, picking on anybody specifically tonight, but I'd like to just demonstrate how Native people, indigenous natural people are committed to their thought and practice. They're committed to their relationship to the land. And all those natural commitments have been usurped by our modern age, our technological age. It doesn't have to be that way. It's just this is how it's been constructed. And that direct relationship where that if I don't get out there and till the soil and plant some peas, I'm not going to have peas. Native people didn't have industrial farming. They had community farming. They didn't have stores where you could just buy anything. The stores that they had were stores that they made. So they had root cellars.
Storage.
Right. That's where it comes from. That's where a store comes from. That's right. So,
It seems more like humankind's or mankind's soul interacts with nature instead of the machine's soul, if it has a soul.
well, what has happened is that we have been separated, and this is a lot of elders and native teachers will share this with you. Is that when you're not barefoot and you're wearing a shoe, that's one separation. And the difference of say a shoe and a moccasin or a sandal that you've made from grass, woven grass, is very tough, folks. There was more than moccasins here. There was cotton was here, cotton fabrics. Grandma Twyla would tell me that the Seneca, they wove perfectly lovely fabrics from a variety of fibers.
Handlooms?
Oh well, they had a variety of loom technologies. They would be very simple compared to the industrial things that we use, or even the kind of what do they call that, cottage industry level. Like a tabletop loom instead of a big industrial loom. But the idea is that weaving was known, and pottery and metallurgy. The idea that indigenous peoples really around the world, but let's just stick to North America, at the time of European contact, 500, 600 years now, didn't have metallurgy. That's not true. They did have metallurgy. They also, many nations also had a form of pictographic writing as well as syllabic writing. So, the Cherokee being among the more famous, having their own alphabet. The Cree nation also have their own alphabet. But the quality of life was a hands-on endeavor. So if you wanted to live well and comfortably, you had to work directly with your environment. You had to go harvest the clay and fashion a pot and dry it out and cure it and then fire it. You had to go and make your own collection of fibers and then spin them and weave them into material. So then you have now all of those activities keep you very close in relationship with the timing of the land. When planting time is, when harvesting is, when You maybe collect some wool off your sheep. You know, when you do these, there's a lot of when to do something, and ceremonies frequently help clock through the seasons those particular activities that are very specific. Like, you know, there's only a certain couple of weeks or days even that various fish will run upstream, you know, for harvesting fish. There's only a few weeks in the early spring, late winter, when you can collect maple sap to make your syrup. When you're pounding black ash logs to make splints for pack baskets, it's only done a couple of weeks of the year in the spring, a certain time in the spring, because the fibers in the wood have to have a certain quality in the atmosphere that only occurs at that time of year. You know, I'm not precise in my understanding on this, but moisture content in the air and in the wood itself. The wood has to be prepared ahead of time. Usually they like to soak it in a cold deep water, like the St. Lawrence River or any body of water like that, you know, and then they would pound in a rhythm, and you could hear it all over the land when it was time to make the wood splints, because all the guys are out there pounding the ash, because there's only a certain time of year where it comes up real nice. It'll always work. You can always pound the wood and make it work. I mean, they do it anyway. But there is a very specific time of year when it comes up quite beautifully and it separates, because you're separating each tree ring into a kind of a ribbon that is woven into the pack basket. And they can make... Yes, because the weavers are generally the women and the maker of the splints are generally the men. So it's a two-part operation, and it's cooperative. Everybody was expected to deal with the gardening. Men were generally the hunters, but you know, everybody had a working knowledge of everything, so that if somebody was lost, it wasn't lost. The knowledge wasn't lost. And that's very different from how our world civilization and our culture designers give us designer culture. So there's not a whole lot of substance to it. There's not a whole lot of survivability attached to that. You have to participate Darwinian-wise in their economy, which is a false economy. It's an economy that separates you from those direct activities of the land.
Wow. Can you go back to those beads? They were so beautiful. There. So each one of those beads was made by hand?
No. That's my beadwork.
Oh.
And those are 11 and 12, 10, 11, and 12. No, they call them 12-aught beads, seed beads. I go smaller than that. Some of them, there might be some 13-aughts, which are really tiny and hard to handle. You pick them up with the needle itself. But that's just a little, you know, imaginary leaves and flowers. And I made that for a friend in Japan and sent it off.
So we should get Lloyd down on Woodstock TV, to talk about the treaty belts.
Yes. That would be really a lovely thing to do.
So that's a way that's like their libraries? I know that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, all weavings and pottery pattern is from around the world, really. Any culture of people will have symbols in their art, in their depictions of things. And like the Navajo blankets, very, very famous. They card the wool, spin the wool, make the yarn, then they dye it. They get plants, extracts for their dyes, mineral extracts perhaps for making other kinds of colors, but they have their methodologies. But then when they get the patterns woven into the mat or the blanket, there's a variety of patterns. There's the thunderbird, which kind of looks like a stylized phoenix or eagle, and that has a meaning. There's a thing called a storm pattern. Now, the storm pattern, you've seen this out there, kind of goes like that, like series of, whoops, I just hit the microphone, series of jagged triangles, all sort of connected, and that represents the lightning, the storm pattern. Now, the thunderbird is a mythical bird, but it's also thought to be a real bird, the size of a small airplane, and it represents power and authority, I would imagine, of some kind. Not like the eagle. The eagle is a messenger between the creator, the great mystery, and those of us down here on the ground. Communicates between the higher realm and the lower realm.
Is a thunderbird like the phoenix?
I don't know enough to say that. No, I don't know. But you had brought up, where we are now, and where we are now is we're facing some pretty heavy duty technology coming down the pike here, folks. And I showed you all of these pictures of clouds to make you aware that there are other players, like the Air Force said, in the atmosphere. They don't understand it and they can't control it. It's the enemy. That's how that's okay. Yeah.
Kill it.
Yeah, kill it. Hey, why?
When in doubt, kill it.
When in doubt, kill it. So, if you are able to take the time and observe clouds, and try talking to them. Try any number of things to make yourself acquainted with the clouds, and maybe you'll see something. You'll see behavior, and I guarantee you that if you do it long enough, if you really make the effort, like I made the effort, you will catch and observe some very interesting things up there in the sky.
If talking to them seems like a strange idea, how about just being quiet with yourself and feeling how you're feeling in their presence, in the presence of, say, a beautiful billowy cloud, versus a chemtrailed one that you notice how you're feeling,
Well-
being thankful for whatever's gobbling it up to rectify.
Yeah, when I got into this, and we'll look at that one. This is a battle in the sky. It's in slow motion. I mean, it'll take hours to watch it unfold. But you can watch the cirrus clouds actually move in and overtake and swallow up a chemtrail. Now, frequently, the chemtrails just get dumped right into the cloud, but you will see this attraction. Now, people who object to my idea that the cloud is alive and knows what it's doing will say, nah, it's not a living thing, and yeah, okay, they'll say, okay, even if you're right and it is a chemtrail, not a contrail, the cloud doesn't know what it's doing. It's just, being attracted to whatever it is that's in that chemical. It's just sort of, being attracted to it. Okay. Why? Why is it being attracted? Well, the answer to the why could be because the metals are very dry, and it's like asking for the water vapor to connect to it in a way. The way water rolls downhill. So maybe there's a pull in the atmosphere from the moisture. The moisture gets pulled into the chemtrail. I think both is going on. I think the chemtrail is designed to pull the atmospheric moisture into it, And I also think that the cirrus clouds are intelligent and know damn well what they're doing. So you have an interaction. You have the equivalent of a bomb or a bullet being shot at a living creature and the living creature defending itself. That's how I see it.
To be continued.
So that was a quick 2 hours. And thanks for watching Conant Show. And thank you, Paula Gloria Barton, for teching for me. And I hope you all found this interesting and informative.
All right.
Keep coming back.